Hello, I'm Jane Dutton with the wrap of the week's news. If you're still in this country and haven't taken up Donald Trump's offer to become a refugee in the United States because of the, quote, unjust racial discrimination in South Africa, then you'll know it's been quite a week at home. From the very public Zuma family takedown to the feedback on Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address, to this. The bodies of 14 soldiers killed in Democratic Republic of Congo have finally returned home. 2 weeks after their deaths in the eastern part of the country, the remains of 14 South African troops were handed over on Thursday.
And I thank you as the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces because they have paid the ultimate price. We as South Africans join you as the bereaved families in your grief. Yes, as you feel pain as a result of your loss, a loss that is so overwhelming. And as a nation, we will forever be thankful to you as individual families for the sacrifice that you have made. But we will eternally remember these soldiers that we are now going to lay to rest. And we will give them the honors that they deserve.
Patriotic Alliance Gayton McKenzie has called for a return to conscription to bolster the South African Defence Forces. McKenzie suggested South Africa should retaliate against M23 rebels for the deaths of the South African troops. He put the challenge to the main opposition parties Umkhonto we Sizwe and the EFF to back their party titles and positions.
You call yourself Commissar, you call yourself CIC, we need you there. There's people that we need you to go fight. We are tired here in Parliament of toy soldiers.
Our troops are trapped and encircled by the M23 rebels without communication, without support, and apparently without a way out.
A dramatic escalation of the conflict in eastern DRC and US humanitarian aid cuts are set to dominate the African Union summit this week. The 55-nation body meets from today in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa. The AU says all heads of state will attend, but it's not clear if Rwandan President Paul Kagame and his Congolese counterpart Felix Tshisekedi will meet in person. The Special Investigating Unit says it has recovered 2 billion rand on behalf of student financial aid scheme NSFAS. The SIU says this includes funds that were paid out to students irregularly across the country's higher education institutes. But there are still billions outstanding, which directly impacts thousands of deserving students who can't access financial support. President Cyril Ramaphosa has extended the registration period for Spaza shops and other food handling outlets to the last day of this month. This leaves business owners with 12 days, excluding public holidays and weekends, to ensure that their businesses are compliant. This is part of a national drive to sign up Spaza shops in a bid to improve regulatory oversight and food safety standards in the informal food sector. The ultimatum for shop owners to register their businesses or close shop came last year after at least 23 children died, some of whom were confirmed to have died of poisoning linked to the agricultural pesticide Turbofos. Now, Tshwane Mayor Nasipi Moya says she stands by her calls for Spaza shops in the city to be owned exclusively by South Africans, which will help employment.
So for those residents who say, I can start a business so that I have bread on the table, then we are saying this is one of the ways in which we're going to empower our residents. So definitely we're standing by that.
Never too old to chastise your child in public, too. Former President Jacob Zuma told his daughter, Duduzile ZUMA-SAMBUDLA, to apologize after her bad behavior on social media. The Umkhonto we Sizwe party member of parliament stated that it was never her intention to tarnish her party's reputation when she expressed her frustrations with the party's Secretary General, Floyd Shivambu. On Monday, ZUMA-SAMBUDLA shared a series of posts on X referring to Shivambu as the worst thing to ever happen to the MK party. ZUMA-SAMBUDLA has issued a public apology to Secretary-General Floyd Shivambu for offensive remarks. This is her second one. In her first one, ZUMA-SAMBUDLA apologized to everyone but Shivambu. A lot of time was spent debating the veracity and impact of Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address. Action SA's parliamentary leader, Athol Trollip, said Ramaphosa's address was delusional, out of touch and fanciful. Trollip said South Africa had for years allowed itself to be bullied by its allies, and now the chickens were coming home to roost as the new US administration responded by pulling aid.
You have chosen friends that are pariah nations, that are neither democratic nor uphold human rights. Nations at war with their own people through repressive regimes. Conversely, we treat democratic nations, our major trading partners, with disdain and insult. Let it be known that the racist rhetoric so freely bandied about in this parliament and on party rally stages by the likes of the ANC, the EFF and MKP has grave consequences for us as a nation.
And we are saying to you, do not be misled by people who are saying you are under siege because of expropriation, which is meaningless act. That act does not say anything, and they all understand that language.
Almost a decade later, and the raging battle to retrieve the 3 miners who perished underground the Mpumalanga mine continues. Action SA leader Herman Mashaba is now seeking the intervention of the Gauteng High Court following several failed attempts to assist the bereaved families. Mashaba wants, among others, a waiver of the business rescue practitioner Robert Devereaux and mining company Makonjwan Imperial Mining's consent for the recovery operation, and for the parties to grant reasonable access to the Lily mine for the operation. Zoleka Potashe, Eyewitness News.
We also saw Mbuyiseni Ndlozi resign from the EFF. Ndlozi says his resignation stemmed from a disagreement over his suspension last year.
Well, I think it's actually losing big time on, it lost big time on the leader Ndlozi as it's following up on their loss of Floyd Shivambu. So it seems like the brains in EFF, those that have driven the ideology of the party, that have driven the party, and also the charisma of Ndlozi, they are losing out on that.
That is why we will never allow forced removals again in this country. And that is why we have a constitution that prohibits the arbitrary deprivation of property.
South Africa's ambassador to the United States, Ibrahim Rasool, has welcomed the decision by President Cyril Ramaphosa to send envoys around the world to provide clarity on the country's foreign policy. This comes after Trump's executive order signed last Friday stops all aid to the country and also grants refugee status to Afrikaners. That's been put down to South Africa's Land Expropriation Act and taking Israel to the International Court of Justice. Now, we're looking to Saturday to see if Hamas releases Israeli hostages. They've complained that Israel is not sticking to some of the ceasefire agreements. Donald Trump said all hell would break loose if Hamas doesn't let them go. Putting this in further doubt was Trump's staggering claim Palestinians would have no right of return to Gaza under his plan for the United States to take over the territory. And it's Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day to you, and I hope you're surrounded by lots of love. We'll see you for more next week.
Eyewitness News, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, log on to ewn.co.za or ewn.mobi.